I will start by showing the designer part of the workflow. I'll share my screen so that you can see what I'm doing. And I've actually set up a Design Studio project ready for the import from Figma, and I've just added a mock backend and some JavaScript simulation here so that I can create the basic animation before I pass that over. But first we want to actually have a look in Figma. This is where we have our design. And so we have the speedometer dial component and a screen with that component in it that we're going to use to actually kind of connect that to our mock data. And I've already sorted this all out here, so it's all set for export and created all my groups and named all my layers and everything there. So all I need to do for now is just actually export this. I can make sure that it's in the right folder, which I think it's there already. And then I just need to expand that zip folder of the export, which should give me all my assets and my metadata file. And then I can come into Design Studio, select that metadata file and import that to generate my screens. It's fine. Okay, and now I should have the screens that I generated. So there's this main file. We see here that we have this sort of screen file with our component. I can just go into that component to do the animation. It looks like I need to adjust just a couple of things here to recenter that a little bit. And that text looks okay to me. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is add a custom property here using the property sheet to the root item, which I'm going to call speed. And that should be a real with a default value of 0. Now I can connect that speed property to my text label, and then I'll later connect it to the animation frame itself. So we can start with the text label here. And this, in this case, I actually want to do a rounding on it. So that we make sure that it's just those 3 digits that we see. That's good. And then next I'm actually going to add a timeline in to animate this needle around the range of the speedometer. So I can just add a basic timeline. I'm going to give that 200 frames because that's what we have for our sort of max value. So we have that built into the timeline. I don't need any animation in this case because it's going to be a data-driven animation. So with that set, I also need to add a pivot group to this, something for it to sort of animate around the center. So I can just come in, add an item just above it in the tree, and make sure that item is really centered up. Here, that should be okay. I just name that pivot just to be nice and clear. Make my needle a child of the pivot group, and then use this rotation property here to rotate it back to 0 for the first frame. And I want to rotate it all the way up to the other end for the last frame. Back a few frames. That looks good. And then I should have that whole rotation there. And I can also just select that timeline, and with the current frame, I can use these combo boxes to, or I can actually just type it in to go to my root item and grab this speed value that we've attached here. And there we go. Now I can actually just go back out to the main file. And I should actually see that I have that property that I created, this speed property here. And to actually connect that to my mock data, what I'm going to need is just to import my mock backend. So I can just add this import here. And then connect that speed value here to the speed from my mock data. Okay, now if I run that in the live preview, we should see, there we go, that it's updating the display number in the center, and it's driving that animation of the needle around the speedometer all the way to the end. When it gets to the end, it'll just reverse itself and go back to the beginning again. But with that done, we can say that the design prototype is ready. I'll put that into Git and push it, and then Emmanuel can connect that to a real backend showing you the developer part of the workflow. Okay, so that's done. Let's bring up the Git tools here. And I can just select everything. Make sure that's right. It's got my QML files and all my assets. Give that a commit message. And then come back into the remote tools, push that up. Okay, so looks like I didn't do a pull first. That's a bit annoying, but it shouldn't be a problem. If we just pull, let's have a look and see if there's anything on my side to commit now. No, so then I run push, and it should have pushed everything up successfully now. Okay, so now I can hand back over to Emmanuel, who can check those files out and have a look and see if everything's working on his side.
So thank you, Brooke, for your design. So now we will go through our development part. So what we would like to do is to be able to connect our speed dial to some real C++ value. To simulate this, we will have two applications. I have my application there, that it's a slider that will trigger the speed value. And here we will have the speed dial. As you can see, it's already working between them through the network using Qt remote object. Qt remote objects allow you to share some C++ object between two applications through the network. So what I have done here, I have this speed control backend, but I will let it aside for the moment. And we have our dashboard where we would like to replace our text with the speed dial provided by Brooke. So you can retrieve here my my QML file with my window and my text, which is connected to a backend.speed. If we check there in my main.cpp, where does it come from? This backend is an object that I have shared the property in my context of the QML, named backend, and it's a reference to this backend object. In my backend, I have just a property that it's a speed and that we can provide directly to the QML. So this is required to be able to do that. And in the CPP, there is a basic implementations of the Qt remote object directly. So the first thing that we need to do is first to get what Brooke has done from the Git repository. So we will pull the changes, discard it actually, and just get everything yes to all. So it go back to our main.qml file. That's fine. And now we will, so normally if I go in the QML project and designer, so just run a QMake again to be able to get everything. Yeah, we get this new folder with the speedodial UI.qml. So we can this new one. As you can see, there is in it normally a speed property, and it's the speed property on our side that we will plug to our backend. To do so, we will open our main.qml file. We will remove the text. We will name it speedodial. As I have imported directly the required folder there, we can directly ensure that center in parent. So just to put it in the middle of my screen, and we just plug the speed to the backend. That speed. So I have no need to touch about the UI.qml of Brook. EA is responsible of the UI. I am responsible of the backend and plug everything with the backend. So now let's run the backend and let's run the speedometer itself also. So we have our speedometer. Let's run the backend. Let's check if it has been connected correctly. It's there. Yeah, so we have connected our C++ backend with our QML done by Brook.